Golden light shimmered across the marble floors of Millionaire, an elegant restaurant filled with laughter and music. Waiters glided between tables carrying cakes and wine glasses, while a violinist played softly near the corner. But at a small table by the window sat a little girl in a pale pink dress, alone. Her name was Lila, the only daughter of one of the city's richest men, Mr. Bennett. It was her 8th birthday. A slice of chocolate cake sat untouched in front of her, its candle burning low until it quietly went out. She didn't move. She just stared at the fading flame. Lila couldn't hear the laughter or the music around her. All she saw were faces smiling, mouths moving, people celebrating, but never for her. Her father had promised to be there, but once again, business came first. The waiter gave her a sympathetic glance before walking away, leaving her in silence. She tried to smile, pretending it didn't matter, but when the table nearby cheered loudly for someone else's birthday, her small smile disappeared. She looked down, hiding the tears in her eyes. Loneliness wasn't new to her. It had followed her for years, ever since her mother passed away and her father buried himself in his work. Across the room, a man in his mid-30s noticed her. Ethan, a single dad, was sitting at a modest table with his 7-year-old daughter, Mia, who was busy drawing on a napkin. He watched Lila for a moment, her small hands moving slowly in hesitant gestures. Then it hit him. She was signing to herself. He blinked. He knew those movements, sign language. His own daughter was deaf too. He could tell exactly what Lila was feeling, that invisible loneliness only a few people truly understood. He leaned closer to Mia and signed softly, "Do you see her?" Mia turned, saw the girl, the melted candle, the untouched cake, and frowned. She signed, "She's sad." Ethan nodded, "Yes, she is." Then Mia looked up at him and signed, "Can I go to her?" He hesitated, his heart tight, then smiled and signed back, "Go ahead." Mia hopped off her chair and walked over, her small boots clicking on the polished floor. Lila looked up, startled, unsure if she was being approached out of pity or curiosity. But Mia only smiled, a warm, genuine smile, and began signing. "Hi, my name is Mia. Can I sit?" Lila's eyes widened. Someone was speaking her language. For a moment she just stared, and then nodded eagerly, motioning to the empty chair beside her. The two girls began signing rapidly, hands moving gracefully, faces lighting up. The waiter paused to watch, realizing they were holding a full conversation without a single word spoken. For the first time that night, Lila laughed. From across the room, Ethan watched them, his chest tightening with pride and emotion. Lila suddenly looked up and saw him. Her smile softened. She signed something small and quick, "Thank you." He smiled back and nodded. Then Ethan and Mia lifted their hands and began to sign together, "Happy birthday." The entire restaurant quieted as people noticed. No one could hear what they were saying, but everyone could feel it. The little girl who had come to celebrate her birthday alone was no longer alone. And as the candlelight flickered against her smile, Ethan realized he hadn't just made her night better, he'd changed her life. When the restaurant lights dimmed slightly and a soft tune began to play, Lila's smile lingered. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel invisible. She wasn't the quiet, lonely girl everyone ignored. She was seen, understood, and loved, even if just for a moment. Ethan watched her carefully, not wanting to intrude but feeling an unshakable pull in his chest. There was something about the way her small fingers moved, so careful, so expressive, that reminded him of Mia when she'd first learned to sign. Every motion told a story. Every glance carried a feeling words could never replace. When the waitress brought another candle, Ethan motioned toward Lila's table. "Could you maybe light that one more time?" he asked softly. The waitress, touched, nodded with a small smile. Moments later, a fresh candle flickered on the cake again. Mia clapped, beaming, and began to sign, "Make a wish." Lila hesitated. Then she closed her eyes. Outside, the night sky glowed faintly against the city lights. She thought of her mother, gone too soon. She thought of her father, always busy, always away. And then she thought of this, This small kindness from strangers who had no reason to care. She blew out the candle. Ethan felt something shift deep inside him. He'd taken Mia out tonight to escape their usual quiet dinners at home, to feel a little less alone himself. But now he realized, maybe this wasn't coincidence. Maybe they were meant to be here, tonight, for her. The waitress passed by again, whispering to Ethan, "That girl's been here for an hour, sir." Her father sent a driver, but she refused to leave. Ethan nodded, his expression tightening. "What's her name?" he asked. "Lila Bennett," the waitress replied softly. Bennett. The name sounded familiar, and then it hit him. Mr. Bennett, the tech tycoon, one of the city's most powerful men. Ethan glanced at Lila again. She didn't look like the daughter of a billionaire. She looked like a little girl who just wanted her dad to remember her birthday. Mia tugged at his sleeve and signed, "She wants to show me something." Lila pulled a small sketchbook from her bag, flipping it open. Each page was filled with drawings of a woman with long hair, a girl holding hands with her father, and then an empty chair. Ethan's throat tightened. Lila had drawn her mother, her father, and herself, with one chair always empty beside her. He didn't need to ask. He understood. Meanwhile, in the high-rise office across town, Mr. Bennett was staring at his phone. Dozens of missed messages from his assistant, one from his driver. She refused to come home. He sighed, guilt pressing down on his chest. He knew he was losing her, not because he didn't love her, but because he didn't know how to show it anymore. He grabbed his coat and rushed to his car. Back at the restaurant, Ethan stood in motion to pay the bill. The waitress shook her head. "It's already been covered," she said, confused. Ethan frowned. "By who?" Before she could answer, the doors opened, and in walked a man in a tailored suit, looking out of place among the cozy lights and chatter. His eyes swept the room until they landed on her. "Lila," he called out. Lila froze. Her hands trembled slightly before she turned. Mr. Bennett approached, his expression torn between relief and guilt. He knelt down beside her, trying to smile, but she didn't sign back. She just looked away. Ethan watched quietly, feeling the weight of the moment. He could tell this wasn't anger. It was heartbreak. He took a step closer, knelt beside them, and signed gently to Lila. "It's okay." He came. Mr. Bennett blinked, realizing what Ethan was doing. You know sign language?" he asked softly. Ethan nodded. "My daughter's deaf too," he said. She and Lila became friends tonight. The billionaire looked at Mia, who smiled shyly, then at Ethan, a man who had given his daughter something he, with all his money, couldn't. Lila finally looked at her father again. Her eyes shimmered with tears. Slowly, she raised her hands and signed, "I just wanted you to come." Mr. Bennett's breath caught. His throat tightened as he tried to remember what little sign he'd learned years ago. His hands shook, but he managed to form a few words. "I'm sorry." Ethan took Mia's hand and turned to leave, giving them space. But as he reached the door, Mr. Bennett called out, "Wait." He walked over, his voice lower now. "You didn't have to do that, but you did. Thank you." Ethan smiled slightly. "We just saw someone who needed to feel seen." Mr. Bennett looked at Mia again. "You and your daughter, would you join us for dinner tomorrow? My daughter could use more friends like her." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "I think we'd like that." As they left, Lila waved through the window, smiling wide, a smile brighter than the city lights outside. And for the first time in years, Mr. Bennett didn't look at his watch or his phone. He looked at his daughter. The next evening arrived with a calm golden glow spreading across the city skyline. The Bennett's mansion sat on the hill like something out of a dream. Wide stone steps, soft garden lights, and tall glass windows reflecting the sunset. Ethan's truck looked out of place pulling up the circular driveway, but he didn't care. Mia squeezed his hand from the passenger seat, a little nervous but smiling. "Ready?" he signed. She nodded quickly, her small ponytail bobbing. When they walked to the front door, a housekeeper greeted them warmly and led them inside. Everything gleamed, polished floors, elegant art, gentle music. But what caught Ethan's eye wasn't the luxury. It was Lila, standing halfway down the stairs in her favorite pink dress, smiling so wide it could light the whole house. Mia ran toward her, and the two girls immediately began signing, laughing, and twirling like they'd known each other for years. Mr. Bennet watched from a few steps behind, his expression softer than it had been in a long time. He approached Ethan, extending a hand. "Thank you for coming. And for last night." Ethan shook his hand politely. "You don't have to thank me. Any parent would have done the same." Mr. Bennet smiled faintly. "You'd be surprised how many wouldn't." He paused, watching the girls chatter. "I've built companies, negotiated with boardrooms full of sharks, but I never learned how to talk to my own daughter." Ethan nodded slowly. "Sometimes the hardest conversations aren't with the world. They're with the ones we love." Dinner was served in a smaller dining room, cozy, warm, and softly lit. Not the usual grand setup of a billionaire's home. The chef had prepared something simple: pasta, grilled chicken, and a small chocolate cake. As they sat down, Mia began to sign to Lila, telling her stories about her school and how her dad always burnt pancakes on Sundays. Lila giggled and signed back that she never even had pancakes before. Ethan raised an eyebrow playfully. "Never. That's a crime." Mr. Bennet chuckled quietly. "Looks like you'll have to teach us the secret recipe." It was strange, in the best way. For once, the mansion didn't feel like a museum. It felt like a home. When dinner ended, the girls went to play in the living room while the two men stepped out to the patio. City lights shimmered below like a field of stars. Mr. Bennet exhaled. "I've spent years trying to protect her from the world, but maybe I was really just avoiding it." Ethan leaned on the railing beside him. "You can't by understanding, Mr. Bennet. You just show up. That's all she ever needed." Silence hung for a moment, heavy but peaceful. Then Bennet turned. "Do you mind teaching me the sign language? I've tried before, but I gave up when it got hard." Ethan smiled. "We'll start simple. Tomorrow, Mia and I can come over for breakfast. Pancakes included." Mr. Bennet laughed, genuinely this time. "Deal." Inside, the two girls had built a small fort out of cushions and blankets. Lila showed Mia her sketches, new ones she'd drawn since last night. This time, the empty chair was gone. Instead, it showed four figures sitting together, smiling. When Ethan and Mr. Bennet returned, Mia ran up holding the sketchbook. She pointed at the drawing and signed, "This is us." Ethan felt something in his chest shift again. The way Lila looked at him, grateful, open, it was like he'd become a piece of her missing story. As they said their goodbyes, Lila hugged him tightly. She signed, "You and Mia are my friends forever." He signed back, "Always." When they walked out, the night air was cool and quiet. Mia leaned against her dad's shoulder in the truck, half asleep, whispering softly, "Daddy." Lila smiled because of us. Ethan smiled back, brushing her hair gently. "Yeah," he murmured. "And maybe we smiled because of her." As he started the engine, lights from the mansion glowed behind them. Not just the lights of wealth, but the glow of a father learning to love again, a man rediscovering what truly mattered, and two little girls who had reminded everyone that kindness speaks louder than words. The morning sun crept through Ethan's kitchen window, spilling soft light across the counter like liquid gold. Dust particles danced lazily in the air, carried by the faint hum of the refrigerator. The smell of coffee mixed with the sweet aroma of pancake batter, his Saturday morning ritual. Mia sat on the table's edge, swinging her legs, her little hands moving quickly as she signed. "Add chocolate chips." Ethan grinned and poured them in. "Chocolate pancakes it is, chef," he said, winking. It was a morning like any other, and yet, somehow, everything felt different. Because today, they weren't just spending another quiet weekend together. They were heading back to the enormous Bennet estate. Not as visitors who had stumbled in by accident, but as friends who had left a mark. Ethan didn't know what to expect. He'd seen kindness fade before, promises that sounded real until life got in the way. But something about Mr. Bennet and his daughter Lila had stayed with him. The loneliness in that mansion still haunted his thoughts. And maybe, deep down, he knew there was unfinished business there. When they arrived, the mansion looked different. Not in structure, but in spirit. The tall iron gates that once loomed coldly now stood open. Flowers had been planted near the entrance, small, bright ones that Mia immediately noticed. "Daddy, look, pink ones like Grandma's," she said. Ethan smiled. "Yeah, maybe someone wanted this place to feel like home again." As they parked, Mr. Bennett appeared at the doorway. No suit, no stern expression. He wore a simple white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His hair was slightly messy, as if he'd been up early working on something. In his hand, he held a small notepad. "Ethan," he greeted, his tone softer than Ethan had ever heard it. Then he raised his hands and signed, a bit clumsily but with effort, "Good morning." Ethan froze, pleasantly surprised. He exchanged a glance with Mia, whose face lit up with delight. "He practiced," she signed excitedly. Mr. Bennett chuckled, slightly embarrassed. "I've been trying. Lila helped me." Inside, the mansion no longer felt silent. It felt alive. Somewhere in the background, the faint melody of a music box played. The air smelled of butter and sugar, a smell Ethan knew all too well. "You cooked?" Ethan asked. Mr. Bennett gave a half smile. "Attempted, but maybe you'd like to show me how it's really done." Within minutes, the grand marble kitchen became something entirely new, warm, noisy, imperfect. Ethan whisked pancake batter while Lila stood beside him, her small hands mimicking his movements. Mr. Bennett stood across from them, awkwardly trying to crack an egg and failing spectacularly. The sound of laughter echoed off the stone walls, a sound that had probably been missing for years. When breakfast was finally served, they all gathered around the long oak table. There were pancakes shaped like hearts and stars, some burnt, some perfect. Mia and Lila had covered theirs in strawberries and syrup, signing little jokes to each other between bites. Mr. Bennett, who had once sat stiff and formal, now leaned forward, paying full attention to their animated gestures. His signing was slow, sometimes wrong, but the effort mattered. He turned to Ethan and signed, "I want to learn more." Ethan smiled. "Then you will." After breakfast, they sat in the sunroom. The walls of glass looked out over the gardens, where golden leaves fell softly in the autumn wind. Ethan began teaching simple new signs: family, friend, love. Mr. Bennett fumbled through them, his fingers uncertain but his eyes determined. When he finally signed love correctly, Lila's face glowed. She leapt forward and hugged him. For a long moment, the man who once seemed untouchable simply held his daughter and closed his eyes. Hours passed without anyone noticing. The sun began to lower, spilling orange light across the marble floors. When Ethan finally stood to leave, Mr. Bennett's voice broke the calm. "Ethan, wait." Ethan turned. Mr. Bennett hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. "There's something I need to ask you." He gestured toward the window, where the girls were now chasing each other through the garden, their laughter bright as bells. Those two, they found something together I've never been able to give Lila. I don't want her to lose that. Ethan nodded slowly. They make each other braver. Mr. Bennett met his eyes. "And you've done the same for me." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "Before you say no, just read it." Ethan opened it. Inside was a formal offer. A contract, carefully written, offering him a full-time position at the estate as Lila's communication mentor and emotional guide. Along with it came an attached note in Bennett's own handwriting. "You've given my daughter something priceless. Connection. I can't repay that, but I can make sure it continues." Ethan looked up, conflicted. "Mr. Bennett, I don't do this for money." Bennett's eyes softened. "I know that. That's why you're the only one I trust to stay." There was a long pause, the kind that carried meaning without sound. Finally, Ethan exhaled. "All right, but only if I can still make pancakes on weekends." Mr. Bennett's serious expression cracked into the first genuine laugh Ethan had ever seen from him. He extended his hand. "Deal." That handshake, warm, firm, full of quiet respect, marked the start of something new. The days that followed were nothing short of transformation. The once lonely mansion grew lively. The staff smiled more often, drawn to the sound of giggling girls. The quiet corners were filled with small notes written in both handwriting and sign language, reminders of words learned, feelings shared. Mr. Bennet began setting aside an hour each evening to practice with Lila. Sometimes, Ethan would walk in to see him mouthing words silently, tracing letters in the air while she corrected him. It wasn't always smooth. Some nights ended in frustration, but others ended in laughter and hugs. Lila wasn't just learning language. She was learning love. And Mia, she found a sister she never had. The two girls were inseparable, painting, reading, making up their own secret signs that even Ethan couldn't decode. Sometimes, Ethan would stand in the doorway just watching them, his daughter laughing freely, safe and seen, and feel something deep in his chest shift. Maybe this was what healing looked like, quiet, steady, and full of grace. One evening, after the girls had gone to bed, Mr. Bennet invited Ethan to the balcony. The night was calm. The city lights glimmered faintly in the distance. "You know," Bennet began, his voice thoughtful, "for years I thought being a father meant providing, giving her everything money could buy." He turned toward Ethan, but all she ever needed was someone who'd sit and listen, even when there's nothing to hear. Ethan nodded. Sometimes silence says the most. Bennet smiled faintly. "Thank you for teaching me that." Weeks later came a day no one would forget, Lila's birthday. There were no cameras, no reporters, no elegant ballroom decorations. Just streamers, homemade cake, and laughter that filled every inch of the house. Ethan helped hang fairy lights, while Mia wrapped her tiny present, a hand-drawn card that said "Best Friend Ever" in big colorful letters. When Lila walked into the room, her eyes went wide. A banner read. The mansion was quiet again. Golden sunlight spilled through the tall windows, lighting up the marble floors where little Lila had once danced in silence, her laughter echoing faintly through the halls. It had been weeks since Ethan and Mia started working with her. Every morning, she'd come running down the hallway, a flash of blue dress and curly hair, to greet Ethan with a bright wave. She'd grab his hand, tugging him toward the study, eager to learn something new. Mia was always there, watching from the doorway. Sometimes she'd smile. Sometimes she'd blink away tears. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was pride. Watching her daughter connect again with the world, it was something she thought she'd never see. And Mr. Bennet, the stoic billionaire who once ran his empire like a machine, now found himself slowing down. He'd peek into the study sometimes, watching as Ethan patiently taught Lila how to express full sentences and sign. Her little hands moved with confidence now, graceful and full of life. Ethan was sitting beside her that afternoon, guiding her through a book. Lila's small fingers traced each word on the page, then lifted to sign it. "You're getting really good," Ethan said softly, his smile warm and proud. Lila beamed, looking at Mia, who was standing by the window with a cup of tea. She signed, "Mommy, I'm happy." Mia's eyes glistened. She set the cup down and came over, pulling her daughter into her arms. For a while, it felt like peace had finally found them. But peace never stays forever. That evening, the sky turned gray, and thunder rolled across the city. Ethan had stayed late. Lila insisted he help her finish a small birthday surprise she was making for her mother, a handwritten note in neat, blocky letters that said "Thank you for hearing me even when I can't speak." They were both laughing when a sudden noise echoed from outside, the rumble of thunder followed by the flicker of lights. The storm was closing in fast. Mr. Bennet was still at the office, but Mia had texted Ethan to stay until it passed. He didn't mind. He liked being there. It was a little after 9 when it happened. Lila was sitting on the carpet with her drawing pencils when she suddenly froze. Her eyes fluttered, her hand trembled, and before Ethan could react, she slumped sideways onto the floor. "Lila!" Ethan's voice cracked as he rushed toward her. Mia dropped her phone, panic flashing through her face. She knelt down beside Ethan, her shaking hands pressing against her daughter's forehead. "She's burning up. Oh God, Ethan, she's not waking up. Call the doctor. Now." Ethan scooped Lila into his arms, his heart pounding. The thunder outside roared louder, lightning flashing across the windows as he carried her down the hall. The butler ran ahead to open the door, rain pouring in as Ethan sprinted toward his car. He didn't even feel the cold. He just kept whispering, Hang in there. Kiddo, please, hang in there. Mia climbed into the back seat, clutching her daughter's tiny hand, tears streaming down her face. The wipers thrashed against the windshield as they tore through the rain-soaked streets. When they reached the hospital, nurses rushed out with a stretcher. Ethan didn't let go until they forced him to. His arms felt empty, his mind spinning. Hours passed. The white walls, the smell of antiseptic, the hollow echo of footsteps, everything blurred together. Ethan sat beside Mia in the waiting area, both of them soaked and trembling. When the doctor finally came out, the silence in that hallway was deafening. "She's stable," the doctor said quietly. It wasn't a seizure or disease. It was emotional exhaustion. Too much bottled-up stress. Too much fear. Her mind just shut down for a while. Mia broke down. The sound wasn't loud. It was soft, helpless. "She's just a child. She doesn't deserve this." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "She's strong, Mia. She'll wake up. You'll see." The doctor added gently, "She'll need rest and familiar comfort. Don't let her feel alone." When they were finally allowed in, Lila looked small and pale against the white sheets. Machines beeped softly beside her. Her tiny hand lay limp on the blanket. Ethan sat beside her bed, brushing damp hair from her face. He whispered, "Hey, champ, you don't get to scare us like that, okay? We've got more signs to learn, remember?" Her eyelids fluttered, and for a second, he thought he saw a faint smile. Mr. Bennett arrived soon after, his usually calm face pale with shock. He didn't speak. He just walked over, placed a trembling hand on his daughter's arm, and then turned to Ethan. "I don't know how to thank you," he said, voice rough with emotion. "You stayed when no one else would." Ethan shook his head. "You don't have to thank me. She's like family now." That made the older man's eyes glisten. For once, the billionaire's walls fell. He pulled Ethan into a tight, wordless hug. By morning, the rain had cleared. Sunlight streamed through the hospital blinds, soft and golden. Lila stirred, blinking open her sleepy eyes. Her gaze darted between her mother and Ethan, then to her father standing behind them. Mia gasped, clasping her daughter's hand. "You're okay, sweetheart." Lila blinked, and then she signed, "Don't cry, Mommy. I'm okay." Everyone laughed through their tears. Even Bennett smiled, really smiled, for the first time in years. Ethan exhaled, leaning back in his chair, relief washing over him. He caught Lila's gaze, and she signed slowly, her little hands shaking but determined. "Thank you for staying." Ethan's throat tightened. He lifted his hand and signed back, "Always." Outside, the city began to stir again. The storm had passed, but for this small, fragile family, something new had begun, a quiet understanding, a bond deeper than words. And for Ethan, it wasn't just about helping a child anymore. It was about realizing that sometimes even the smallest act of kindness, a hand to hold, a moment to listen, could change everything. As he walked out into the morning light, he looked back one last time through the glass. Lila was laughing softly, her hands moving in rhythm with her mother's. Mr. Bennett stood beside them, finally part of the picture instead of outside it. Ethan smiled. Then he whispered under his breath, words only he could hear. "Happy birthday, Lila." And for the first time in years, the sound of silence felt like peace. The days after Lila's recovery moved differently, softer, slower, almost sacred. Mr. Bennett had taken a step back from work. His office calls were shorter, his meetings postponed. For the first time in years, he chose breakfasts over boardrooms. Every morning, he'd sit across from his daughter at the long oak table, watching her tiny hands move as she signed stories about her dreams, about Ethan, about the little things that made her smile. Mia would watch from the side, her eyes full of warmth. The heavy weight she'd carried for years, the loneliness, the guilt, the exhaustion, had finally begun to lift. And Ethan, well, Ethan had become part of the family. He came by almost every day, not just for lessons but because it felt right. The mansion didn't feel cold anymore when he was around. There was laughter in the hallways, music from Lila's tablet, and the scent of cookies from the kitchen when Mia decided to bake. Lila loved those afternoons, the ones where Ethan would sit on the floor beside her while she colored, the sunlight brushing his hair as she giggled. She'd often sign, "You're my best friend," and he'd smile and sign back, "Always will be." Mr. Bennett noticed it, too, the quiet bond that had formed not only between Lila and Ethan but between Ethan and Mia. He'd catch the way Mia looked at Ethan when he wasn't watching, the gentle gratitude in her eyes, the kind that came from deep respect. Sometimes Ethan caught himself staring, too, not out of romance at first, but admiration. There was something about Mia's strength, her ability to stay soft in a world that had been so cruel. One evening, Bennett invited Ethan to dinner, a rare gesture. The dining room glowed under the warm chandelier, the air rich with the scent of roasted herbs and soft laughter. "Ethan," Bennett said, setting down his glass, "I used to think money could fix everything. But after seeing you with my daughter, I realized love fixes more." Ethan blinked, unsure how to respond. The billionaire smiled faintly, his tone softer than ever. "Thank you for teaching her what even I couldn't." Mia looked down, her cheeks flushing. Ethan smiled. "She taught me, too. Sometimes, it's not about the words we say. It's about the silence we're willing to understand." Bennett raised his glass, his eyes glassy. "To understanding." They clinked glasses, and Lila clapped her hands, signing, "Family." That word hung in the air like music. Family. Something they had all lost and, somehow, found again in each other. A few weeks later, Lila had her first piano recital at the local community center. It wasn't a grand event. No cameras, no reporters, just a small crowd of parents and kids. But for her, it was everything. Ethan and Mia sat side by side in the front row. Lila walked up to the piano with her little red ribbon in her hair, her feet barely touching the pedals. She turned, smiled, and began to play. Each note was delicate, imperfect, but full of heart. The melody trembled, just like her hands, but it carried something more powerful than technique, courage. When she finished, there was silence, then a wave of applause that filled the room. Mia cried. Ethan clapped until his palms hurt. Even Mr. Bennett stood, his expression unguarded, proud beyond words. Afterward, Lila ran into Ethan's arms. She signed, "Did I do good?" He smiled through tears. "You were perfect." Mia knelt beside them, holding both their hands. And for a long, beautiful moment, the three of them stayed that way, a teacher, a mother, and a little girl who had once felt completely alone. The next morning, Ethan came by early. He had something in his pocket, a small wooden music box he'd carved himself. He found Mia in the garden, watering the roses. The sunlight caught her hair, turning it gold. She smiled when she saw him. "You early today," she said softly. He nodded, a bit nervous. "Yeah, I wanted to give you something." He handed her the box. It was simple, smooth, carved with delicate patterns of stars and waves. On the inside lid, he'd engraved a single line, "For the moments words can't reach." Mia ran her fingers over the engraving, her eyes filling. "It's beautiful." "It plays a song," Ethan said, turning the small handle. The soft melody of Claire de Lune drifted out, the same song Lila loved to hum while she colored. Mia listened, the wind catching her hair. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he said quietly. "You and Lila, you changed my life." Her gaze met his, warm, lingering, saying all the things neither of them dared to speak aloud. Then, from the balcony above, Lila's little voice rang out, faint, but full of joy. "Mommy, Ethan." They both looked up. She was waving wildly, signing something between giggles. Mia smiled. "She's calling us inside. Breakfast time." Ethan chuckled. Wouldn't want to keep the boss waiting. They walked in together, side by side, the morning light spilling through the glass doors behind them. Inside, the table was set for 3. Pancakes, strawberries, and a vase of wildflowers Lila had picked herself. As they sat down, Lila signed, "Today is happy day." Ethan nodded. "Every day with you is a happy day." Bennett entered quietly, a rare, gentle grin on his face. Mind if I join the celebration? Only if you bring more syrup, Ethan teased. The billionaire chuckled, and for the first time in years, laughter filled that house. Genuine, unguarded laughter. No cameras, no headlines, just family. Later that day, as Ethan packed his things to leave, Lila ran up to him with something in her hand, a drawing. It was simple, crayon on paper, 4 figures holding hands under a big yellow sun. She pointed at each one. Mommy, Daddy, me, you. Then she signed, You belong here. Ethan froze. His throat tightened, and he knelt to her level. He smiled softly, signing back. Maybe I already do. Mia stood in the doorway, her eyes glistening, the morning light wrapping around her like a halo. Ethan turned to her, voice low but full of meaning. Some people walk into your life to teach you something. Others, to stay. She didn't answer. She just smiled. The kind of smile that said everything words couldn't. As he stepped outside, the sun was bright, the air fresh, the world alive again. For once, Ethan didn't feel like an outsider looking in. He felt home, and behind him, through the open window, came the soft sound of Lila's laughter, the most beautiful music he'd ever heard.